Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of The Danny Show. I'm your host, Daniel Cody, giving you commentary and reviews on all things wrestling. Thank you guys so much for joining. Before I get started, a couple of quick announcements. First and foremost, you probably noticed that my set is a little bit different today because I have a couple of different collections that I've added. You can see Punk, Cody Rhodes, Dusty, Ted, Angle has always been there. Undertaker and Stone Cold are the original parts of the set. And also, thank you guys for helping me reach 500. I really appreciate that. We're halfway through, so thank you guys so much. And in honor of that, in celebration of that, as promised earlier this week, I told you that I noticed WWE's Vault channel has been doing a watch party for Ruthless Aggression Week. No, not Ruthless Aggression, excuse me, for New Generation Week. So, in honor of WWE's Vault channel celebrating New Generation, it inspired me to do a countdown of some of my top 10 favorite matches from the New Generation era. Fun fact, I was actually born right around that time. So, let's get started with my top 10 favorite matches. We're going to start at number 10. We're going to start with yes, I said it right. At number 10, we have Bret the Hitman Hart versus X-Pac, at the time known as the 1-2-3 Kid, on an episode of Monday Night Raw, July the 1st of 1994, just 24 hours before his birthday. And ironically, yesterday was Bret Hart's birthday. But this match was for the World Wrestling Federation Championship, and it was a match that was pretty good. X-Pac, our 1-2-3 Kid, was very young and upcoming. Bret Hart was the champion, and we were fresh into the era. However, on this episode of Monday Night Raw, it was seen that Bret Hart got the pinfall victory over 1-2-3 Kid, known as Sean Waltman in real life. However, Bret Hart was not going to take the victory because he knew, though the referee did not know, that X-Pac's foot was on the rope. And Bret Hart, being the fair champion that he was, decided, I don't want to win this match like this. They took a commercial break, and when they came back to Monday Night Raw, I was actually an infant around that time. But when it came back to Monday Night Raw, they continued the match until Bret Hart won by submission. Next, at number 9, we have Shawn Michaels versus Diesel, now known as Kevin Nash, at In Your House, Best Friends, Bitter Enemies. A short time after halfway turning heel, Diesel lost at WrestleMania to The Undertaker. Then, while Bret Hart lost the championship to Michaels. Michaels was champion, however, at a special episode of WWE in Madison Square Garden. Kevin Nash, aka Diesel, hit Shawn Michaels in the back with a steel chair when he was supposed to be teaming with Shawn to face off against Bret Hart and The Undertaker. So, that being said, that led to this match, and we saw Kevin Nash take a leg from an amputated man, and they put on a great fight together. I believe announce tables were broken that night also. However, in the end, Shawn Michaels was not only able to defeat Diesel, but retain his WWE Championship. Next, at number 8, we have the British Bulldog versus Owen Hart on an episode of Monday Night Raw, February the 26th, 1997. This was for the inaugural European Championship. And what better place to have that than in the continent of Europe itself, specifically in Germany. This would be a great match between the following. We also saw something we don't often see, which is someone kicking out of the British Bulldog's power slam. And Owen Hart did that. And even though Owen Hart did kick out and show out pretty well, unfortunately for Owen, God rest his soul, it was actually British Bulldog who would win the match and become the first European champion. And of course, at the time, they were both partners in tag team champions, I believe. Next at number 7, we have Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig at King of the Ring 1993. That was the starting point and the end of the golden era and the beginning of the new generation era, and Bret Hart was already there, a part of it. This would be Hulk Hogan's last night in WWE, losing to Yokozuna for the WWE Championship before heading on to WCW, giving the younger guys a chance to shine, including Bret Hart, who went against Mr. Perfect. Ironically, Mr. Perfect was actually a fan favorite at the time. And this match was a good match for the semifinals of the King of the Ring tournament. This match was won by Bret Hart, and Bret Hart would then go on to defeat Bam Bam to become King of the Ring for, I believe, the second time. However, this match between Kurt Hennig and Bret Hart was one of the top matches of that night. Next at number 6, we continue with Bret Hart, 6 minutes and 40 seconds into the video. We have Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels in the historic Iron Man match for the WWE Championship, the World Wrestling Federation Championship at WrestleMania 12 in Anaheim, California. First of all, let me just say, I could not do what Shawn Michaels did. I don't know if I could do what Shawn Michaels did. That was an incredible entrance. And I would love to know how in the world did they make sure Shawn Michaels was okay, but what happened in 1999 happened. I really want to know, how was it, besides the grace of God for Shawn, was everything able to work well in 96 but not 99? But I'll get into that later. Nonetheless, great entrance by Shawn Michaels. The match was an Iron Man match for the World Wrestling Federation Championship. Shawn Michaels, the contender, Bret Hart, the champion. This match did not disappoint at all. In fact, the match was so good, but no one was able to score a fall before time was up. Bret Hart had the sharpshooter and time ran out. And so you would think that Bret Hart would go out still champion. However, the referee and officials ruled that the match needed to go into overtime and sudden death so that we could have a clear winner, because we needed to end WrestleMania properly. So they wrestled overtime, and it would be Shawn Michaels who would execute Sweet Chin Music and win the World Wrestling Federation Championship. Next on this list, we go to number 5. We have Team Austin versus Bret at Canadian Stampede 1997 in your house. In specific details of this match, we have Team Bret Hart, which consists of Bret, who got the loudest ovation in his entrance, Brian Pillman, father of Lexis King from NXT, British Bulldog, Owen Hart, and I believe Jim the Anvil Neidhart, father of Natalia. Now, from WWE's Team Austin side, we had Stone Cold, Ken Shamrock, Goldust, the brother of Cody, son of Dusty. We have and the Road Warriors. Now, obviously, Stone Cold did not get much of a good reception that night because they were in Canada, which is Bret Hart's hometown and home turf. So they got the loud ovation despite the fact that Bret Hart was heel. Bret Hart was always loved in every other country except for America. So they had the great ovation, and they had a great 5-on-5 tag match. We thought Owen Hart was taken out of the picture. Then Stone Cold was taken out of the picture. Eventually, Stone Cold Steve Austin would return to the match and continue fighting, putting Bret Hart in the sharpshooter while Owen Hart would return and make the save, eventually getting the roll up on Austin and winning the match for the team. God rest the soul of Owen Hart. Of course, Stone Cold, being Stone Cold, did not want to take that lost line down, so he came in and started attacking British Bulldog with a steel chair. Now, I think that was Jim the Anvil Neidhart with a chair, and they had to take Austin out in handcuffs, and Austin went out, flipping out the crowd in Canada. Next on this list at number 4, we have Shawn Michaels versus Mankind at In Your House Mind Games 1996 for the World Wrestling Federation Championship. Shawn Michaels is champion because of what happened in this countdown at WrestleMania 1996, WrestleMania 12. Now, Mankind had other issues going on with The Undertaker, and you would see that later on in this match. As they fought, they went through announce tables. Shawn Michaels, being smart, targeted Mankind's fingers to make him less able to use the mandible claw. However, there was some outside interferences from people like Vader, Psycho Sid, and ultimately The Undertaker, because as Mankind opened the casket to put Shawn Michaels in it, The Undertaker appeared. The match was ruled victory by disqualification, and the victory went to Shawn Michaels. Next on this list at number 3, we have Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon, aka Scott Hall, at WrestleMania 10. A ladder match to see who would become the undisputed Intercontinental Championship. This match didn't disappoint at all. A 5-star match that set the bar for future ladder matches, especially those at WrestleMania. And Shawn Michaels would be the first of those ladder match icons. Of course, Shawn Michaels, being Shawn Michaels, put on a great performance, doing a lot of high-flying moves from that ladder. But in the end, a mistake by Shawn Michaels got his leg tied up in the ropes, which gave Scott Hall, aka Razor Ramon, time to climb the ladder and retrieve the Intercontinental Championship, becoming the undisputed champion in Madison Square Garden for WrestleMania 10. It's safe to say that Madison Square Garden has only been kind to Shawn Michaels maybe once or twice, and that was Survivor Series 2002. Excuse me. Now, that being said, let's move on to number 2. At number 2, we have Bret the Hitman Hart versus Owen Hart in a steel cage match at SummerSlam 1994, live from CM Punk's hometown of Chicago. For the World Wrestling Federation Championship, a rematch from that year's WrestleMania, because at WrestleMania 10, which would do well, WrestleMania 10 would have done well as a 2-night event, if I'm being honest. But at that year's WrestleMania, Bret Hart lost to Owen, which made Owen a worthy contender for SummerSlam. Unfortunately for Owen Hart, despite a great performance on both sides, it was Bret the Hitman Hart who would win the match while the family watched and retain the World Wrestling Federation Championship. Then we were met with the return of the colorful version of The Undertaker. Now, before I go to number 1, let me give you my some honorable mentions of the Ruthless Aggression era. First, we will start with Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold winning the Tag Team Championships from Owen Hart and the British Bulldog, Raw 97. We have The Undertaker versus Diesel at WrestleMania 12. And The Undertaker versus Psycho Sid at WrestleMania 13. Speaking of WrestleMania 13, that brings me to number one. Also, another honorable. Oh, I forgot which date that was. But speaking of WrestleMania 13, let's get into our number one match. That number one match is Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin in a submission match with Ken Shamrock as the special guest referee. This build-up came after Bret Hart had been constantly facing frustrations after being screwed over by everybody. And of course, that amazing promo that Bret Hart did just days before WrestleMania, nights before WrestleMania, with frustrating not being able to describe everything. This match was a classic in every sketch of the imagination, and this match was setting the tone for the end of the new generation family era and setting us up for the Attitude Era, the non-family, non-PG era that would soon follow. We were in between borderlines at that point, and this match ended with Bret Hart putting Stone Cold in the sharpshooter and Stone Cold Steve Austin refusing to tap out and had to pass out. And Bret Hart won the match. But the simple fact that Stone Cold Steve Austin wouldn't quit, both men were fan favorites, fans gravitating to Stone Cold. Even though Stone Cold was supposed to be the heel, the tables would turn because of Bret Hart's actions at the end of the match and Ken Shamrock pulling him off. We got Stone Cold as face and Bret Hart was heel. Hell truly did freeze over. But it was an iconic match and an iconic show. So, let me know in the comments below what was your favorite match from the era of the new generation. I'm your host, Dan Cody, and that's all the time I have for you today. And I'll be back with another review on all things wrestling.